Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. The title that has come to me is You Are the Audience of Your Own Act. And so I want to speak about a concept that's pretty much like in the core of some of my personal teachings to the world. And so I have this notion of the advanced communicator. It's a sort of, you can say it's a kind of archetype, but it's more like a position in human existence and attitude and behavior that I have created. So in some sense, I pretty much see all humans as either pilots of consciousness or advanced communicators. So I have been giving these talks for a while, and ever since I started them, there was an experience that I've been having, which I feel now I can share in this talk. You see, when I say you are the audience of your own act, I mean that you are observing your existence. This is something so crucial to come into conscious view. The fact that you are aware you're existing. So many people, they are conscious they're experiencing, but they don't know they're existing. Okay? When I say you exist, you see your knowing right now is referential. You see, we refer to external realities, movements that articulate our position in the cosmos. This is a totally different attitude. This is, in some sense, getting acquainted with your attention as consciousness, as the moment. So pretty much, there's different types of awareness. There's an awareness that you are the body in the moment, and there is an awareness that the awareness of the body is also the moment. So pretty much in a lot of these talks that I give, sometimes what inspires me to kind of lengthen them is the fact that I am hearing myself. I am hearing myself not as a thought, as a presence. You see, your personality is relevant to your thoughts, relevant to your ideas. Right now, if I come and see you as a being, right, and if I ask you, who are you, dear listener, and you give me a sentence or a paragraph or whatever, you just say some words, I will see how conscious you are in accordance to how much you're aware you are not what you say, and how much you're aware that if you were what you say, you will have to change inevitably. That means we're changing beings trying to find a static truth in a dynamic cosmos. That is the first hilarious thing that's going on. We are trying to capture knowledge in language as if knowledge is a wild animal and we have to always have words for it to be able to prove it or know that it is in some sense valid. We need linguistic identification, but the thing about abstraction is that it becomes more multidimensional. So the more you walk out externally, you are seeing the infinitude of one dimension. When you walk internally, you are seeing the infinitude of multiple dimensions as the void. So there has to be a sort of level of existential, technically it's like this, you look at it, you see that existence can be empty, and you wonder how would emptiness be aware of itself, and then you see it's a instant, because it's instantaneous. Like for me, there's a huge chance that right now the human being is part of a field of intelligence, not a particle in the field that's only intelligent. The intelligence doesn't arise from the particle. The human body has been designed to receive intelligence. But what expresses, what moves the free will is more than a set of random decisions. You see, it is more than the voice of the environment echoing in your ear. So I have this archetype. I shouldn't call it archetype, I think. I'll call it I've spoken about in other talks. Pretty much the reason I say I acknowledge people as advanced communicators is because we're all advanced communications of the universal sector. The advanced communicator is the person who becomes aware of it. That means you realize that your intelligence is a result of a known conscious process based on your limited ability and based on a limitless unknown process. Right? So in some sense, why can't science ever find an exact formula for the whole cosmos? Simply because it's too big to index. For example, if you were curious about climate change, you would have to find, if you wanted to know exactly what the true view on climate change was, we would have to see, for example, a lot of climate change specialists and their view, for example. So eventually it will average out. In life, there's always chaos and order. You should be wary if you notice that in like the yin yang symbol, you enter a moment and there's no implication of chaos. Okay? What I mean by that is that your mind is living ahead of you. And because you're ahead of you, your emotions are arising due to your momentary reaction to subtler phenomena. So pretty much your mind is projecting a version of you, and that is emotionally real to you. Like right now, the version, you see, if I remember 10 years ago, an experience of me, for example, like, I don't know, falling down or laughing or something, that memory is activated in accordance to an emotion, right? Emotions are more eternal than memories, at least in my experience, more than images, right? So some people say, how do you think? And some people say, oh man, I think in words. And some person says, yo, I think in images, you know? And for example, and somebody says, I think in sounds, something like that. But you eventually see that where is thought happening and how is it happening? When we look at where is thought happening, the world can explain it. But when we wonder how it's happening, the world cannot explain. In some sense, we cannot use the painting of Da Vinci to know how he held the brush. Do you see what I mean? We can't reverse engineer some realities. So, you are an actor in a cosmic play. Of course, I should have been opened up with this, but I'll tell you this. There's a word in Vedic thought. It is called Leela. Leela. I mean, I'm giving it, it's like totally in Sanskrit, but you know what I mean. Like, Leela. Leela means life is seen as a play. It is seen as an act. You are a performer on a cosmic stage, and elemental forces, in accordance to the fields of intelligence they find themselves, they become animate. This is going to be perhaps one of those kind of cognitions of, it's kind of like a fruit from the future that I'm picking up from a present tree. In the middle of the act of life, the actor becomes aware that its lines, its actions, are the theatrical conclusion of the axioms of belief. And sometimes it doesn't matter if you believe something or not, your attention is on the image. And so what I'm trying to say is, it's a dance between complexity and simplicity, between chaos and order. Children that think life is going to be ordered, they are fools. Children that think life is only chaos, they are fools. But a mankind that realizes, all right, I've opened my eyes in emptiness, there's some stuff here. This is like a person at the edge of existential hope. It's like, okay, maybe, just maybe. We had to open our minds, and we opened them to a world that is endless. And as we open them to a world that is endless, the wonder that the self could be endless will always remain. It doesn't matter what people believe in what civilization at what point in history. It is just that you are alive and you're in the shoes of the dancer and you must dance with these shoes. The whole species needs to start tap dancing like tap dancing penguins. That is honestly cruelty. Tap dancing penguins, like the creature's born as a penguin. It has enough suffering, you know. You're giving it tap dancing shit. It's a dance between the natural and the unnatural, between the alive and the lifeless, and between the accessible and the inaccessible. This is so crucial because you might not believe it right now. You think your knowledge has to do with what you consume. Like the same approach we have to knowledge, we have to food, and that is not proper. The mind is not the brain is not like a stomach. Okay, the brain consumes sensory data. Every organ, every phenomena in this life has a sort of energetic validity. This energetic validity cannot be structured because whatever this world is, if it had a designer or not, if it had a writer or not, you know, the story of life, regardless, it is as if we cannot know because the knowing changes. That is the humility. We have not reached this state as a civilization. We have glimpsed at it, but we have not reached there. Very few people on this planet see more than themselves. They only see themselves at times. Anger, rage, cruelty, a lot of emotional realities, you're alone. The person is angry at someone. It's like, imagine an angry person who, like, you've seen that prank on YouTube where some guy, it's like this lineup at an ATM or a bank, and somebody like, some mischievous guy kind of like slaps this lady's behind in the line, but it's the guy behind the guy behind the lady, and so the lady turns around and slaps the guy behind her. Do you see? So it's that her anger, rage, or her reaction is directed at what she believes is true, yet it was from behind, the behind. You see? So what I'm trying to say is that it is behaviors moving. You see? So when you look at phenomena, of course, scientists are at the first level. They're studying matter. Philosophers and psychologists, I'll give them a higher pedestal and I'll say they're studying like the results of matter, right? But I find that it's like, I say very few, but it's not very few. Any creature that is alive will at some point be in some sense drawn into a moment where they will wonder, what is all this? It's like you've entered, or imagine you open your eyes, you're at this house party you've never been, and you're in some sense, people are offering you drinks. You've never been in this place. You have no idea who everyone is, but you have just opened your eyes in it, right? So at some point in that party, you'll be like, why am I here? Where did I come from? And these questions are deep. Everything in life is deep if you look at it macrocosmically. It's as if anything can have value ascribed to it in a different way. Some person looks at the candle and sees just a candle. Some person sees a candle and sees a metaphor for human consciousness. We are all lanterns of knowledge held by the unknown. That is the truth of it. This is why I say playfulness is so important. You see, because so many people, they think the fool is a divine position. Did you know? Foolish people, they will learn their lesson, but they will not perish. They will not lose. Life does not defeat the honest. Life celebrates the honest. I am telling you. That means you going in nature and being your honest self, no animal will dare touch you because you know yourself. But if you go in nature and there is one inkling of fear, It's as some poets have said, you must learn to kiss your beloved, not with your lips, but with your mind. You know? And that is something that is not too fancy nowadays. I remember when I was younger, whenever I liked this girl, I would go and like tell her things she didn't know. And it felt as if like in some way I was helping the mind of another, right? Kind of like some people have Ferraris, some people have stories. Oh man, without silliness, I think we would all die. Because this world is a strange place. This world is so strange that it can make you a stranger in your own home. And that is kind of the sacrifice that comes with metaphysical exploration. What that means is you can choose to live, you can choose to have a solo journey in this life, or you can choose to have a kind of collective journey. Mr. Within is advising the species have a collective journey because you are given its opportunity. As if even it doesn't matter if you were an eternal being or temporal being, regardless, it's like the cake is being offered now. Take that free sample cake, you know, get enlightened. There's something incredible because when you become an audience of your own act, it means the dimension of your intelligence that is expressing, the actor, and the dimension of your intelligence that is receiving, which is the audience, the observer, pretty much your dualities shift a little bit because your philosophical kind of philosophy is at the edge of psychology, because psychology in any branch of knowledge will see its limitations. You see? That means, like, trust me, the best thing to do in this cosmos is to be playful. Because it is a play. It is a performance, and moments have value once. And especially when human beings, like a group of human beings, find themselves in one moment, that is a very unique moment. Because it has to do with the balance of the collective feeling. Some people enter certain collective environments, and of course they're new to the environment, so they don't know how to feel about it yet, right? They don't know their emotional intelligence's kind of stability. It's not stable. I've had moments where it's as if the moment I was having thoughts that were too dark, you know, I've made the experience emotional. Literally, I've taken external chaos, translated into the past. So the thing is, one thing I do when I get, there's been times where I've been enraged, and in the middle of that rage, I just accept the truth. I just accept the truth that I don't know, and because I didn't know, something else that knew occurred. And that's a sort of warrior's humility. No, you cannot be a great warrior unless you've lost one war, right? So imagine this great warrior, in some sense undefeated after hundreds of wars, and then one day somebody tells them, in some sense challenges him and says, you cannot be a true warrior because you have not seen both sides of the coin. It's kind of like this ancient saying where they say the one who knows his devil knows his God. It's like the one who's experienced chaos can attain the order. So if you've experienced chaos when you were young, I'm telling you, you should celebrate. If you've been through hell and back, you're back. That's the value of the present moment, and this is why we wake up every day with a new eyes to look upon the day. For me, it's as if, to be honest, it doesn't matter. This is kind of like a deeper relationship one can find with the nature of their universal sector, that it works in accordance to rhythms of harmony, but a harmony and allegiance. So what that means is throughout my day, just like planets aligning, I have moments where their emotional intelligence is playful, the intellectual intelligence is playful, and the objective intelligence is playful. So all my because my whole moment is, and because my whole moment is playful, it does not give it, how can I say it? It does not take and endlessly gives. Because only if you were in heaven you would be like that. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody thinks about how heaven is like. Do you see? We don't ask the questions. because we're so caught in trying to find answers to older questions. So what it means is sometimes humanity doesn't need answers. It needs somebody to shout a new question, and we'll all be like, holy shit, we never thought we'd see it that way, you know? Very simply, live for the world that has lived for you. But there is always repercussions. You cannot do something and not expect it not to influence something. Let me tell you why depression is a selfish act. Because you think the value of your life is only in your eyes. Mr. Within is, in some sense, calling all human beings. You have a mind that is untapped. Literally, you have like a USB filled with endless files that you have not plugged into the computer. There's a way your state of mind has not aligned itself. You see, aligning yourself, there's two ways. Either your personality attempts to align your presence but fails if it's in the wrong. And the other is that your presence aligns your personality, and your presence is non-ideological. Did you hear what I said, dear listener? Your presence is non-ideological. So how am I speaking about it? In a very tricky way, through a negation. This is why I have to open certain contexts. Because for me, speech is a sort of sculpting. Do you see? But it is a sculpting with validity. So you are letting patterns. It's like you're not trying to change the rules of the chessboard, but you get to place the pieces in accordance to your free will. So whenever somebody speaks, whenever somebody acts, or better yet, whenever somebody lives, they live. They are going into moments of where their knowing is being challenged by the unknown, and therefore they get new dimensions. It's kind of hilarious. Western society has in some sense created a kind of dynamic for itself where it feels it is a slave until the weekend. And then in the weekend you're an animal. What I mean by what I mean by that is that you trust the unknown when you are tired of knowing the same thing. When you are tired of seeing a world that in some sense does not act efficiently. For how long? For how long will we all be wearing masks of kind of putting words on our face and thinking that's what we are? For how long? We have believed the mask on the face of life rather than the face of life that brings forth the mask. For me, the concept of death is strange because subjectively I feel every thought that has ever entered my awareness and I have forgotten it, it has lived and died in my eyes. That means, guys, you might not believe it, but in my eyes right now, endless thoughts are alive. The advanced communicator. The advanced communicator is how you are your whole moment, not just the content in it. No mastery can be attained unless the collective is bowed to. That means you will go through some sort of resistance, internal resistance in this life, or it could be inspired externally. Like something will happen to you in this life that you will literally stand differently than how you stood before. Your mind will open up its wings without drinking Red Bull. Like it will open its wings. To be honest, the world is being torn between psychedelic patterns of thought and technological patterns of thought. And of course, economy was here first. There's so many things that burden the person. We think it's kind of like in the food chain, we just had to defend ourselves from other creatures and find food. But in the concrete jungle, the food chain, we find ourselves in the concrete jungle. In civilizations, kind of like when we open the hood of civilization and look at its engine, one of those engines is in some sense the facilitation of various dimensions. So what that means is, imagine you, like a realtor has taken you to a house to buy, and you look in every room of the house. Now you leave the house after looking at every room once, and in your mind, if I ask you, did you see that house? You will say yes, but the awareness to each room's detail is at a certain percentage in your mind. The fact that the educational system acknowledges that there are different intelligences, like I can even look this up. Let me just look this up for a second. Here. How does the educational... Of course I know this. I think there's these 6 types of intelligence they acknowledge, but how does the system acknowledge intelligence? Multiple intelligences. Okay, what is this? So Howard Gardner's, this is Howard Gardner's theory for, it's a theory from Howard Gardner about multiple intelligences. And this is what he says. Being intelligent does not always mean that someone tests well. A problem with teachers and school administrators have struggled since the earliest days of organized education. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences helps educators think differently about IQ and about what being smart means. The theory is changing the way... Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Oh, there we go, here. It's more than 6, guys. He says there's a linguistic intelligence, there's a logical mathematical intelligence, there's a musical intelligence, a spatial intelligence, a body kinesthetic intelligence, an interpersonal intelligence, and an intrapersonal intelligence. So interpersonal, you're understanding other people's intelligence. I mean, okay. So Howard Gardner is saying the original 7 intelligences. So he sees these 7. I personally think bodily, kinesthetic, and spatial are the same. You cannot move your body properly unless you're aware of the space. Oh, sorry. His definition of spatial intelligence is different. So maybe I should get into this. He says linguistic intelligence, a sensitivity to the meaning and order of words. Logical mathematical intelligence, ability in mathematics and other complex logical systems. Musical intelligence, the ability to understand and create music. Spatial intelligence, the ability to think in pictures, to perceive the visual world accurately and recreate or alter in the mind or on paper. Spatial intelligence is highly developed in artists, architects, designers, and sculptors, sure. Okay, and he says bodily kinesthetic, which is for dancers pretty much. Interpersonal intelligence, he says an ability to perceive and understand others, individuals, their moods, desires, and motivations. Political and religious leaders, skilled parents, and teachers and therapists use intelligence. Pretty much every human being uses interpersonal intelligence, because how else do you buy food from the store, you know? Intrapersonal intelligence and understanding of one's own emotions. So I appreciate how Howard Gardner, of course this is a great advancement, how Howard Gardner has brought this to the attention of the educational system, these 7 intelligences. However, I find that we have to take into consideration a quote that is ascribed to Leonardo da Vinci, that he says, to develop a complete mind, study the science of art, study the art of science, realize how everything, learn to see, realize how everything connects to everything else. What it means is that the educational system has to also acknowledge a sort of intelligence. When he says study the science of art and study the art of science, he's saying study the symmetry of values in existence. Okay? And so when he says learn to see, that means learn to acknowledge what is truly here. And then he says realize that everything connects to everything else. What that means is, because your mind in the moment is generating phenomena, everything is integrated. Right now you may think linguistic intelligence is different from musical intelligence. It's like, really? To be honest, of course, we have to, like, I'm being playful here. I appreciate Howard Gardner's original seven intelligences theory. But I feel that it's of course we have to theorize, because it's in the domain of abstraction and memory, and various genetical factors come into it too, of what really decides intelligence. Someone can say, imagine somebody got the best results in an exam, but when human civilization was about to fail and they were required to help, they didn't. It's as if your intelligence matters in accordance to how much you care for what is efficient now or valuable now to continue. The world is a game of values, I am telling you. And this game of value in each human being's mind fragments into various dimensions. For example, a social dimension, a kind of personal dimension, a sort of, how can I say it? I speak of this as programs. For example, right now, if I say, like, I was born in Iran and raised in Canada, so if I say I'm an Iranian Canadian, a Canadian Iranian guy, it's like, okay, hear those words, but I don't believe language it holds the truth. You see, the thing is, when you study linguistic intelligence, you get access to everything else, because it's all occurring in one moment. This doesn't mean everything is one moment and you don't need to do anything ever. This means that the stage, because your eyes are open, is yours. Dare to dance. Dare to dance in this lifetime. That's all I can say. I don't care if you're a good person, bad person, but if there's one honest vision in your life, you just acknowledge it. Acknowledge the winds of evolution as they pass you by. I am telling you, because we are alive once, everything in the moment matters. But to what degree it is only matter is a different discussion. And here's the truth. We want our civilization right now is not the best it can be. And what that simply means is that the ideas that are truly influential in our civilization, when I say civilization, think of the sum of some influence, some effect of all societies. We become the mind of our species. And that mind is universal, which by nature, by its nature, you have always been the observer within. You have always been observing your life. This is something in Vedic not mythology, in Vedic culture and its metaphysics, it is pointed to. It is the story of the two birds. And so I want you to imagine this great tree. And on this great tree, there are two branches. One which is above the one, one top, one bottom, right? So there's this branch, and above it there's another branch. And so what the story is that in the bottom branch, we see a bird, the most beautiful bird we have seen. And this bird is from the beginning of its life working. It is working. It is literally doing everything the world wants. It is doing everything its children, family want. It is doing everything its civilization wants. And it is non-stop. And what that means is it is the infinitude of the infinite projective ability of the ego as long as mind is present. So the bottom branch is kind of Maya. It is, anyways, I'll get into the implication of it. Let me tell you the story first. So in the bottom branch, there's this beautiful bird, but this bird has, in some sense, has been moving since the beginning. It has never stopped moving. Now, this on the top branch. It's a totally different vibe. There's a bird which is actually in the story the same bird, but this bird has never moved. It is still and silent. It has never moved. Just listen to what I'm saying. There is a depth to your sight, to the presence of your sight, that has never moved. You were conscious before you were born. This is an incredibly bold statement I'm saying. A lot of people will be like, what? And I'm so casually saying it, but the potential is there. So, what is the moral of the story? Ladies and gentlemen, this is how intelligence works. There is a part of you observing the moment. You will forever are an attributeless observer of attention. And then there is the bird that is moving from the beginning of its life. Pretty much elemental existence, elemental forces, atoms are moving around whether we like it or not. You know, it's like, what can you do? It's like a meteor hits Earth, sure, man. It's like, okay. It's like atoms are moving out of our control. What can we do, you know? The laughter of the future may come from the tears of the past. And so the duty of human life is that, this is going to sound a bit intense, but you put language on pause. You put truth and the search for meaning on pause. And you simply stare at your moment. You stare at your moment until you get it, until you see it. That you are your whole moment. You are your whole moment. You have always been your whole moment. I remember I found myself in 2016 in this underground kind of gathering of ideas. And in some sense, when I say that, I mean, it was literally like this place where people were speaking publicly, and each one of them, it was called a spiritual gathering, and it was like literally in the title. And so pretty much everybody was coming there, and from their own kind of like it was weird. It was like there was a list of these people who called themselves Ostad. Ostad means master, like guru. So pretty much I went in a room and I saw a bunch of people with the word guru in front of their name come and say some stuff. And none of them spoke about the soul. It's as if none of them had ever asked the question. They had explanations, but these explanations were not theirs. It's like, you know when someone is acting. I'm telling you, we human beings have this strange ability when we suddenly feel the moment is more intense than it has to be, and then the salesperson has already seen in your eyes you have walked away. You know, I find it hilarious. We have teachers and the educational student trying to help students, not realizing the greatest help is to change the whole design of the educational system. You can't get 8 billion people using the same bathroom, one bathroom. That's a terrible metaphor. I'll see it like this. You can't have... Oh man, now I can't. Okay, I'm going to paint different imagery. Da Vinci, guys. But no joke, like Michelangelo has this quote where he says, in some sense, everything comes from design to some degree. Everything has a design if you can see it, if you're conscious enough. If you're conscious enough, the world is filled with colors that it doesn't matter. It's like these colors are the meanings, right? So it's like if we're talking about the soul, like when I looked at traditional societies, I'm like, let me act like they're kind of lawyer. Let me act like the lawyer of all these ancient ideas. Let me see what happens. Because some of them carry certain values. recently I've kind of felt these intuitive winds of kind of directing these talks towards certain artistic, like I draw and stuff, and so I thought maybe there's a certain philosophical depth that goes with that I recently I feel I should share. Probably this is going to be one of these kind of last true existential talks for now, because it doesn't matter what you hear. It's like I don't care how my voice sounds in your ear. I care how much you see the conceptual painting that's being drawn. Because words go to images, you know? Did you know that? Wait, just look at the word world. It's missing one L. Like you take that L away, it's just the word, you know? The world has become a word. There is something that it's a very fascinating notion. Aside from a playful approach to it, it is kind of like, what if I told you that me and you and every human being on this rock can only see each other when we stop seeing ourselves? Do you see the challenge ahead of us as a species? We have to see more than ourselves, or the world will burn while we're in the house. Humanity's honest agenda should be attempting to make cities that these cities in some sense can fly off the ground. Pretty much we have to make planes into cities, and then humanity will be victorious. In accordance to physical extinction, if it appears, to some degree. It's like sometimes it fascinates me. I look at my own design as a creature on this planet, as the Homo sapien, and I just wonder if God, man, I'm feeling too playful. If the universe has designed me in this manner, in what other ways has the universe designed the unknown? So in some sense, believe it or not, imagination has no end. But imagination is the momentum of life. Those people who say they don't feel creative, and I've met some poor souls like this, they feel creativity is something you have. It's not something you have, it's something you activate. You see? You buy a drink for your muse. You let the world remind you that before your thoughts had to be true, there was something here. That is the silent honor. To be honest, an advanced civilization doesn't mean the civilization is just speaking a lot. Sometimes it means that in certain moments you gotta contemplate the noises around you. Many times in my life I have challenged myself, and in some sense literally I've been walking in the streets of a busy downtown area and I'm like, do I really need to exist in an environment with such noise? And I realize everything that you do for the first time, the karma is pure. Your honest self enters the moment. This is why if you don't change your beliefs, you will become a dishonest person eventually. Because in a changing world, how dare you measure the sky? I want to There's something that I want to say a bit more about Howard Gardner and his intelligence theory, and evidently he's kind of presumed there's an eighth. Gardner discussed the eighth intelligence with Kathy Checkley in an interview for Educational Leadership. The first seven and the eighth, Gardner said, the naturalist intelligence refers to the ability to recognize and classify plants, minerals, animals, including rocks, grass. Oh, Jesus Christ, he made that the eighth? The ability to recognize cultural artifacts like cars or sneakers may also depend on the naturalist intelligence. Some people from an early age are extremely good at recognizing and classifying artifacts. For example, we all know kids who at 3 or 4 are better at recognizing dinosaurs than most adults. Okay. Damn. I feel Howard Gardner, his mind is seeing more than he's writing. He's telling the world. There is more than 8. There's way more. There is ad infinitum. Because the moment can reapply. It can not just reapply, it changes. You don't understand how much of divinity is just watching change. Man, I feel I should read a poem for you guys. A poem I wrote. Okay, so I wrote this in 2016 at 8:58, September 11. No way. Okay, Jesus Christ. So something the audience may not know about me is that before I started giving these talks, I found myself more as a writer, and so pretty much there was a time where every day I would crank out like 3 to 4 poems, each couple pages or something. It was just I would just get the pen and the hand would move before my attention would look at it. In a sense, but that doesn't mean something else. It just means like, how can I tell you? When you know, you know. Anyways, guys, this is the poem I wrote, and let me say it. This is all right. It's called "Carving Egos into the Divine." I wrote this in 2016, 8:58. Carving egos into the divine. Some children of God come with memories that are neither from the past or the future. Who could your past life and future self be clapping for? Did you know duality's secret is unity? Once the children of the divine observe reality beyond the divide, their simple words will handle complex worlds. For a mirror is a great tool when the divine carves all egos into truth. Some carpenters may have tears of ecstatic bliss in their eyes right now as they're hearing this. But anyways, guys, I feel that intelligence has to do with freedom. Freedom has to do with acknowledgement of self. Acknowledgement of self has to do with acknowledgement of world. So because we have to acknowledge the intelligence of the world before our intelligence emerged, we can't justify the human being's intelligence in accordance to only their genetical design or their conceptual subjective life. So you see, it's as if I'm not convinced. We're not just the body, and we're not just, it's like here's my view, okay? They asked some guy, and they're like, what do you believe? He's like, I believe I'm the body. And the guy was like, okay. And then the second guy, they asked him, what do you believe? And the guy says, I believe that I am in some sense a mind. The guy believes he's a mind. And then they go ask this other person, what do you believe? And he's like, I believe I'm a soul. I'm neither the mind, I'm neither the body, and I'm the soul. And then we have this guy who says, I am neither the body, neither the mind, neither the soul, and that's it. I'm neither of these. And then suddenly the guy says, so what are you? And he's like, there's no answer, man. I'm telling you, there's no answer. You cannot. Who has dared sculpt change so easily? To be honest, you can say this simple argument that all ideology's purpose to be externalized is because man doesn't want to be alone. Because self, like how cells duplicate themselves. This is a fascinating idea, actually. You know how cells kind of like replicate themselves? You know, they kind of break into versions of themselves, for example, as a child is born. So what I mean by that is that when you look at people, you are birthing your mind as them in the moment. You are projecting your mind as them. This is so crucial to observe. You don't know anybody, you know what you have seen. And if they have been honest with you, you may know a little bit about the unseen dimensions of that person as well. You know, I have certain close friends and family that in some sense, if they heard my talk, they would see a totally different speaker than perhaps somebody else, you know. So, anyways. I feel the audience is so enlightened that right now when I'm looking at this live stream, it says 0 people watching. And nothing could be more divine. All mathematical language began from 0. You know, but the ones will come later. You know, first came the 0, then came the 1. What that means is the psychology of the child became the mind. Sorry, not that it became the mind. The child that's born in a world, as it is nourished and comes into awareness, its brain is, as it becomes activated, it is being, how would I say it? The mind is first is the world, is creating itself as the world, then from that created world upon the world extracts itself into subjective positioning. So I kind of looked at it, what is this? What is this creatures on this rock making noises and these noises having meaning? Is there really meaning behind these noises? And I realized the meaning is in the action. It is the armies of authenticity marching for a kind of brighter future. The educational system has dishonored itself, and instead of apologizing and regaining its honor, it is in some sense just hiding its scars, hiding its arrogance. You become, I'm telling you, you cannot be rude to someone and eventually feel broken yourself, because that is what rudeness does to some degree. It's a breaking. Rude people conceptually are being noisy people. Anyways. You are the audience of your own act. A part of your mind, like the first word again, has been watching. This watcher within, it cannot have a story. Therefore, it cannot suffer and it cannot experience joy. There is a certain state of mind that, I don't want to say it's kind of like the limbo state in Dante's Inferno, but it is kind of, it doesn't have to do with the world. It's just a certain state where the observer has seen so many attributes fill up the moment that it's as if the cup at first wanted to be filled, and then it got emptied and filled so many times that it doesn't want to be a cup anymore. You see, I mean, this is a strange metaphor, but just play along. And so, our eyes open in many ways. I hope this talk has served you guys. And I will tell you this. If life is a performance, it's not about the future then. It's about the present moment. how we journey through space and time as a civilization with a new paradigm. A civilization flying towards a new paradigm. We are all pilots of our attention, and within our attention exist the values of the world, and these values of the world must, in some sense, fulfill their destiny. You as a human being among the human civilization, what greater game is there to play? You tell me, what greater game is there to play than in some sense realize that the species is awake? Not in this kind of like new age woke thing that people say. It's not that. It's just that the eye see because the mind is aware. And the mind is aware because the body was never separated from it. You free yourself by calming your mind, believe it or not. In the Diamond Sutra, there's a quote that says, "Keep your mind alive and free without abiding in anywhere or anything." Playfully, what that sentence means is remember that your true nature is the truth of how nature is present. You are free when the prison was never there. Much blessings and namaste. And what I mean by that, sorry, I gotta finish this. There is ideological enslavement, and freedom can arise beyond it. When you live for life, you live for life. Much blessings and namaste. Thanks for listening.